The city hummed. It was a living thing, a sprawling beast of concrete and light. Below, cars moved like blood cells through glowing veins. Above, skyscrapers pierced the dark, their windows like a million tiny stars. The night was alive with the constant low thrum of electricity. It was the city's heartbeat, a rhythm so familiar that no one ever noticed it, until it stopped. One moment, the world was a symphony of light and sound. The next, there was only silence. A deep, profound blackness swallowed everything. The city's heart had stopped beating. Every screen went dark. Every light vanished. An unnatural quiet fell over the streets, a silence that felt heavier and more absolute than any sound. In a small apartment, perched high above the now lifeless streets, a teenager named Leo didn't even flinch. His world had always been the screen in front of him. The glow of his monitor was his sun, his moon, his entire universe. Tonight was no different. He was deep inside a network, a digital labyrinth he knew better than his own neighborhood. His fingers danced across the keyboard, a blur of motion. Lines of code scrolled past his eyes, a language he understood more fluently than spoken words. The city outside might have been plunged into chaos, but in his room, powered by a backup battery system he had built himself, his own world was perfectly intact and under his complete control. Suddenly, the hum of his custom-built server rig changed its pitch. It was a subtle shift, a tiny digital tremor that only someone like him would ever notice. His connection to the outside world, the very internet he was navigating, flickered. It was unstable. This wasn't just a simple power outage. A blackout would cut the power cleanly. This was different. This was messy. It felt like something was actively fighting the system, tearing at the digital fabric of the city's infrastructure. It was an anomaly, a puzzle. And for Leo, a puzzle was an invitation he could never, ever refuse. His curiosity was a powerful, driving force. He sat back, his eyes narrowing. The city's emergency power should have kicked in for critical systems. The grid was designed with redundancies, with fail-safes built upon fail-safes. For everything to go down at once, all at the same time, was statistically impossible. It suggested a coordinated effort, a single point of failure that had been deliberately and maliciously exploited. This wasn't an accident. This was an attack. A cold feeling, a mix of fear and exhilarating excitement, washed over him. Someone had pulled the plug on the entire city, and Leo was determined to find out who, and more importantly, how they did it. Leo's fingers became a storm. He typed with a speed and precision that was almost hypnotic. He wasn't just typing commands, he was having a conversation with the machine. He bypassed the city's main gateways, which were now just digital graveyards. He needed a backdoor, a forgotten path into the core network. He remembered an old maintenance port for the city's traffic control system, a relic from a bygone era of less secure protocols. It was a long shot, a digital Hail Mary. He sent a series of carefully crafted packets, probing, listening, a flicker of response, a digital handshake. He was in. The system was broken, but it was not dead. Inside the network, he found chaos. It was like walking into a library after an earthquake. Data logs were corrupted, directories were wiped clean, and communication protocols were screaming in silent error. But amidst the wreckage, he saw a ghost. There was a trace, a faint digital footprint that didn't belong. It was elegant, sophisticated, and incredibly clean. Most hackers are messy. They leave behind digital trash, fragments of code, and open ports. This was different. This was the work of a professional, an artist of intrusion. The attacker had not just broken in, they had rewritten the rules of the system itself from the inside out. He followed the faint trail. It led him deeper, into the city's power grid management system. This was the heart of it all. Here, he found the source of the problem. A malicious piece of code, a worm, was embedded deep within the primary control module. It wasn't just shutting things down. It was actively preventing the system from rebooting. It was a digital gatekeeper, designed to hold the entire city hostage. The code was beautiful in its destructive simplicity. It was a masterpiece of digital warfare, and Leo couldn't help but feel a strange sense of admiration for the skill involved in its creation. Then he saw it. The worm wasn't just a shutdown script. It was also siphoning data. It was copying sensitive financial records from the city's treasury department, routing them through a series of encrypted channels to an offshore server. This wasn't just about causing chaos or making a statement. This was a heist, a massive city-scale digital robbery happening under the cover of a complete and total blackout. The power outage was just a distraction, a brilliant piece of misdirection to hide the true goal. The city wasn't just in the dark. It was being robbed blind, and no one even knew it was happening. The truth hit Leo like a physical blow. He was the only one who knew. In a city of millions, he was the sole witness to the crime of the century. He held the key. With a few keystrokes, he could sever the connection. He could track the worm, stop the data transfer, and maybe even find a way to reverse the damage to the power grid. He could be the hero, The anonymous savior who brought the lights back on. The thought sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. It was a tempting fantasy, to use his skills for something good, something real, to make a difference in a way that truly mattered beyond the digital realm. But then, the fear crept in. The people who did this were not amateurs. They were professionals, capable of shutting down an entire metropolitan area to cover their tracks. They were dangerous. If he intervened, they would know. They would see his digital fingerprints just as he had seen theirs. They would hunt him down. He was just a teenager in a small apartment. They were a powerful, unseen enemy. To reveal himself was to paint a target on his back, to invite a kind of trouble he couldn't even begin to imagine. Hiding was the safe choice, the smart choice. He could just log out, erase his tracks, and pretend he never saw a thing. His heart pounded in his chest. This was the ultimate hacker's gambit. Help or hide. Expose the truth and face the consequences, or retreat into the shadows and live with the knowledge of what he let happen. He looked around his room, at the posters of old-school hackers, his idols. They were rebels, explorers of the digital frontier. But what was the point of having all this skill, all this power, if you didn't use it when it counted? What was the point of knowing the secrets of the machine if you were too afraid to protect it from those who would use it for evil? His choice was made. It wasn't even a choice, really. It was an instinct. He couldn't stand by and watch. He began to type, his fingers moving with a new sense of purpose. He wasn't just exploring anymore, he was fighting back. He started building a digital trap, a cage made of code to catch the worm. He would not just stop the thieves, he would expose them. It was a massive risk. He was stepping out of the shadows and into the line of fire. He was no longer just an observer. He was now a player in a very dangerous game, and he had just made his first move. The battle was silent and unseen. It was a war fought with lines of code and data packets. A high-speed chess match played out in the city's digital nervous system. Leo worked frantically, building firewalls, rerouting data, and creating false pathways to lead the attackers astray. He could feel them fighting back. They tried to lock him out, to erase his presence, but he was too nimble. He knew the system's hidden corners better than they did. He was a ghost in their machine now. He worked not to destroy their work, but to contain it, to quarantine the malicious worm and sever its connection to the outside world. Slowly, painstakingly, he gained control. He found the master command that was holding the grid hostage, and with a final, decisive keystroke, he disabled it. Deep in the city, massive circuit breakers began to click and hum. A single streetlight flickered on. Then another. Then a whole block. A wave of light spread across the city, chasing the darkness away. Windows began to glow. The familiar hum of electricity returned, a gentle pulse that signaled life was returning to normal. From his window, Leo watched as the city he had saved woke up from its forced slumber, completely unaware of the silent war he had just won on its behalf. He leaned back in his chair, exhausted but alive with a feeling he had never known before. He had done it. He had faced a powerful, invisible enemy and won. He quickly erased his tracks, becoming a ghost once more, leaving behind only an anonymous tip for the authorities pointing them toward the offshore server holding the stolen data. No one would ever know his name. There would be no reward, no recognition. But that didn't matter. The real reward was the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had made the right choice, even when it was the hardest and most dangerous one he could possibly make. As the first rays of dawn painted the sky, Leo looked out at the bustling city below. It looked different now. It was no longer just a collection of systems and networks for him to explore. It was his city. He felt a connection to it, a sense of responsibility he had never felt before. The night had changed him. He was still a hacker, a wanderer of the digital world. But he was something more now. He was a guardian. He had learned that true power wasn't just about breaking into systems. It was about having the courage to protect them. And in the quiet of his room, as a new day began, he knew his life would never be the same.